the starter.
I'll never know. I got out of it.
Test.
Hello, everyone. It's just about 5:15, so a very good late afternoon, early evening. We're in a transitional time of day, but I do know one thing that it is right now. It's rush hour. I was just on the expressway, and the cars are lining up bumper to bumper, so I'm happy that we are all here together to listen to some wonderful music and talk about it together. My name is Christina Lin. I am a radio host over at Classical WFMT here in Chicago. So welcome to St. James Cathedral for the season opener of the 2022 Rush Hour Concert Series presented by the International Music Foundation. The IMF has been providing great music for busy lives, presenting performances by world-class musicians since 2000. And nothing says summer in Chicago like live classical music on a Tuesday afternoon in June. And speaking of world-class musicians, look who I have here. I have wonderful Chicago-based Kontras Quartet here with us today. I have violinists Eleanor Barch and Francois Hankins, violist Ben Weber, and cellist Jean Hatmaker. So welcome all of you. Thank you so much for taking this time to talk with me. It's really an honor to be with all of you. So whenever I have an opportunity to interview an artist through my work as a radio host, I like to start with this question, and that is, what was your first experience with classical music that you can recall? And what about it stuck with you and maybe made that impact to push you on this journey to play it for a career, for your life?
Well, I think maybe I'm not the best person to ask that for because my parents are classical musicians. So the first place I remember classical music from was actually in their classrooms when they were teaching violin and cello. So yeah, that stuck with me obviously for the rest of my life. So here I am.
Sure. So you had no choice in the matter.
Right. So do you want everybody to answer?
Yeah, I'd love to hear, yeah.
Sure. I actually also come from a musical family, so my first experiences were literally in the womb when my mom, who's a violinist,
Very nice.
was playing.
Okay, cool.
So it's almost, I don't remember even not having it in my life. So it's a wonderful thing, but yeah, couldn't escape it. So it's a similar story. Again, my parents are not performers, but they were teachers, but music was always vitally important to them, and so there was a lot of music playing in our house growing up. But it wasn't just classical music; we had a lot of pop music as well. And so, at a very early age, I learned that music made me feel all sorts of ways and all sorts of things that other things didn't. And so, music always felt like a really useful outlet for me, and I took to it. I just really gravitated towards it, and so it was just terribly convenient that my parents were also music teachers because it made the process of keeping me in music very straightforward.
So my family, no one in my family in particular was really professional musicians, but all my aunts and uncles played music together and sang together. And so, and a couple of them were very talented amateur musicians and who used to play in like the college orchestra and stuff. And I do remember, I have vague memories of going to orchestra concerts when I was like 4, and because to see my aunts play, and I guess that's why I started,
That's
or
very
so
cool.
I'm told.
I love hearing these stories because something I'm really passionate about in my work is thinking about how to make this classical music genre, accessible and welcoming to people who maybe feel intimidated by it. I hear that so often from people that, I like listening to classical music, but I don't know where to start. So it's great to hear from professional musicians, people who are passionate about it, because that passion always came from somewhere. So it's great to discuss that with all of you. So we have, and speaking of wonderful music, we have 2 wonderful, intriguing works of music to hear today. We have Apologia at Umzimvubu by Bongani Ndodana-Breen and the string quartet in A minor, the second string quartet of Florence Price. And the composer, Bongani Ndodana-Breen, hails from South Africa, and while that country is many, many miles away, approximately 9,000 miles as the crow flies, if you're curious. Kontras Quartet does have a few direct connections to South Africa, and one of them being Francois Hankins, who also hails from South Africa. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this piece of music, whether you had heard of his works before, and just the cultural references within the piece of music.
Right. So yes, I was born in South Africa, and my family's been there forever. And actually, I knew about Bongani and Ndodana-Breen's music growing up, but he was actually he actually lived here in Chicago for a while. I think in the late 1990s, early 2000s. And I believe that this piece actually was started. He started composing it here in Chicago, so it actually has a Chicago connection as well. And part of why he started it is partly, I think he was a little homesick. And he is from the Xhosa tribe. And so he really wanted to kind of dig into the folk elements of, the Xhosa culture that he's from, kind of in a way to, cope a little bit with being so far away from home. And in fact, Bongani is in the States at the moment. He's doing a residency this whole year at Yale University, where he's tackling seminars and doing all kinds of teaching about bringing African folk elements and folk music into the classical music genre, which is something that drew us to him in particular, because we in Kontras are drawn to all kinds of folk music elements in classical music. That's kind of a thing that we've been really drawn to. And this just fit the bill completely, and it's a wonderful piece of music. The piece's name, Apologia at Umzimvubu, literally translates to a river that means home of the hippopotamus. So immediately that conjures up images that we can kind of imagine long time ago, when these enormous, fantastic creatures actually roamed those areas freely. And it starts with a pretty fast dance style music, because he grew up in that culture where people danced all the time, and in the middle of the piece, he particularly, this is what I really enjoy, he changes the piece to come a little bit slower, and a song comes in which conjures up a very traditional Xhosa style song, where the matron or the grandmothers would be singing this style, where it's a song that kind of descends in its melody. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. So when that comes in, it will be pretty obvious, and that song is passed around the instruments quite frequently, and at the same time a much slower paced dance called the Umthenso, which he gravitates towards in a lot of his compositions, actually. If you want to have a fun time, go on YouTube and type in Umthenso, and I will help you spell it if you don't know how to do that a little bit later. It really is fascinating and wonderful to see, and it'll help you kind of get in, understand this piece of music even more, so. And I'm from South Africa, so it's, we have 11 official languages in South Africa, and Xhosa is being one of them. My language is Afrikaans, and a little side note is that my parents are actually here in the audience tonight. It's probably the third or fourth time they would have seen us perform live in person ever. So it's been wonderful to have them here. So to play a South African piece on the program.
Oh, wonderful. And more on the dance element in that work a little bit later in a moment. And you mentioned the Afrikaans language, and Kontras comes from that language. It means contrast, as far as I know. So I was just curious if the group has a special affinity for this area of the world, a connection to the country and culture. I know you've toured in South Africa as well, so just curious about the connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. When we formed, this is now, how many years ago, Gene? 2009, 13 years ago we formed. And the original members of the group, we sat around. One of the most difficult things to do is to pick the group's name.
Right.
You would think that finding each other and playing well together would be the hardest, but finding that name is really hard. And we discovered that we were at the time from 4 different countries, 4 different continents, which was really contrasting cultures, yet we played together in classical music. And it really was something that we felt we wanted to to point out to people, because the fact that classical music can bring so many cultures together, right? And I think it really just came to contrast my language. The name sounded the coolest in.
Well, by comparison, the options we had were Russian or Japanese.
Oh, okay.
And those are very hard to write if you're not accustomed to writing
That's true.
Russian or Japanese. And I'm from Chicago, so the only other option would have been contrasts. And we were like, well, that's a little too obvious.
So we had an alphabet. Afrikaans had an alphabet.
Right.
Advantage
Kontras Quartet
to it.
really just rolls off the tongue, so I think you made the right choice. And, I mentioned earlier about making classical music, accessible, thinking about the future of classical music. I wanted to ask Eleanor and Ben, because I know you both have collaborated with lots of different people. I was reading about Barbara Streisand and Ben Folds and Josh Groban, as well as, of course, orchestral musicians and orchestras. But with your unique experience working with classical musicians and more pop-oriented artists, I'm curious if you see an avenue, a future where these two collide a bit more as we move forward.
Well, I think it kind of goes in waves. There's all kinds of collaborations going on all the time, and I think that this period in music that's kind of one of the things that's happening in a lot of different genres. But as far as a future for classical music, I think that's really up to the kids who are students now. And this doesn't exactly answer your question, but I think, when I hear that question, I think, well, what is the future of classical music? Is there education happening? Are kids learning about it? Are they learning to play instruments? And if they are, they'll do what they want with it.
Sure.
There's going to be all kinds of genre mixing and but it won't happen unless kids are learning about it. Me and Jean were just having a conversation in the car earlier about the question of that we also, we've coached some adult groups, and that the other thing that's really important about classical music is that it's available. It can be available to amateur
Sure.
players, and it needs to be, and that needs to be encouraged. I don't know if you wanted to say any more about that.
Well, I was mostly just thinking that, classical music used to be a very participation-oriented genre. People were making classical music in their homes, and they were playing instruments, and whether or not it was pop music or straight-up Beethoven, it was sort of left to the passions of the player. But nowadays, I see a great divide between people who are perhaps fans of classical music, but sort of revere the performers, and there's a divide between people who make the music and people who listen to the music. And I think that if we can return to a more participatory culture in classical music, inviting people to make music at any level, taking away the stigma that if it's not perfect, it's not valuable. I think that would be a great thing to see. And also these collaborations cross genre, I think it's great what Ben Folds has been doing. There's a lot of artists who are doing that, who are trying to bridge the gap. And I think that it really all just comes down to, what do you love? How can you participate in it?
And I think that's partly why we've been gravitating towards folk music and pointing out the folk music that's already in classical music. Because when we, just shortly after we formed as a quartet, we moved down to North Carolina for a few years, where we met a folk trio called the Kruger Brothers, and our eyes were kind of opened up into the worlds of collaborating with actual American folk music. And the way we approach our standard repertoire, Beethoven, Haydn, and all these things, completely changed ever since. And like Jean was saying, we were able to go to these festivals with them, where it's particularly folk, and to see how inclusive it seems there, right? And we've been trying to cultivate that at our concerts as much as we can. So with that, we would love if anybody at the end of this concert would like to come and talk with us. We're going to come and mingle with you it would be lovely to talk to each and every one of you. It really would be lovely.
Your collaboration with the Kruger brothers is definitely a favorite on WFMT. We featured the Roan Mountain Suite so many times because it's just so energetic and wonderful. So.
Right, and we've also collaborated with Branford Marsalis, who's also a jazz saxophonist, and you know, there's many fantastic ways to go with it. Yeah.
Sure. Do any of you have a dream collaboration, some artist or group that you would just love to work with?
Eleanor knows what I'm going to say already, probably. Chris Thiele. If he's listening,
Oh
Chris
my
Thiele, if you're out there.
We're manifesting this right now. I have a crush on him. So.
I'm obsessed with his music. If anyone listening has not experienced Chris Thiele's mandolin playing, either solo or with the artist The Punch Brothers, this is a strong endorsement from Gene Hatmaker. That is not time you will regret. In particularly, I think, speaking of collaborations, let's talk about the Goat Rodeo sessions.
Oh, yeah.
With Chris Thiele and Edgar Meyer, Yo-Yo
What
Ma.
a great collection.
And Stuart Duncan. And it's just probably, that's my Desert Island album, is the Goat Rodeo sessions. So Chris Thiele would be my dream collaboration.
I love it. Well, I know we don't have, we're winding down on time, so I want to move on to talk about Florence Price. And you mentioned, Francois, that there's some dance elements in the piece from Bongani Ndodana-Breen, and there's also dance references in this string quartet of Florence Price. She references the Juba dance. If you're familiar with her Symphony No. 1, she references it in that work as well. So I wanted to ask Jean, because I read you have a passion for dance, if you had any comments about the dance music featured in both works, and just your experience with dance in general.
I think I had the great luxury of being indulged in my 20s with receiving some classical ballet training, which was just really, really satisfying. And I think it comes down to that sense of gesture. I love when you can feel how music takes up physical space. And I think a sense of gesture and a sense of line and phrase can really accomplish that. Now, do I know how to dance a Juba? No. You don't want to watch me try. But the point is that when you have a dance music and you have a rhythm that's so strong that it compels one to move, it's this really visceral bodily experience that you take in the music and you appreciate the music in a whole body way, in a way that a melody is different. It's more cerebral, but when you feel a dance and you just feel compelled to move, there's nothing more satisfying to me than a great piece of music and having choreography to it and just getting to move through the space and physically feel gesture and phrase. And that training really changed my relationship to music. And so dance music's always particularly lovely to experience. And we've done some playing for dancers too. We've collaborated with a few dance companies, and we actually, a long time ago now, we put together a string quartet original score for Alice in Wonderland. Oh, and it was stitched together from different string quartets that existed and arrangements of this and that and the other. And that was such a total dream for me personally, because I got to combine my two loves. And so, I think music that has a dance feeling to it can just be enjoyed in a particularly special way.
I look forward to hearing that third movement of the string quartet. And one last question about the string quartet, with Florence Price highlighting that the dance that originated with enslaved people, and she was able to share the experiences of Black Americans through classical music in a way that hadn't really been explored as much before, and it expanded upon what classical music could sound like. So I'm curious how anyone who would like to answer how you would like to see classical music expand perhaps in years to come, maybe different cultures or artists that you'd like to shine a light on going forward.
It's an interesting question to try and answer, because it's something that we're already working on so hard, especially in Kontras. We try to, and we've been doing it for 13 years now, it's not something new to us, where, again, we discovered in ourselves that we already had all these different cultures coming together to play this genre of music from 4 different continents at the time, that it's already a very inclusive art form as it is, and the next logical step would be for us to try and understand each other's cultures more by exploring each other's music. So by bringing, whether it is a Ethiopian song or a dance from Mali or a Malaysian dance or anything together, to us as Western listeners in the classical format, it immediately transports us to that culture and helps us understand not just the music but the people better. And it helps us, again, that old cliche that music is a universal language, and it helps us be together as one big worldly tribe. It is very important for us to keep that aspect in music.
That's wonderful. And to wrap it up, if you'd like to tell us what's next for the Kontras Quartet, what's on your the summer agenda going forward?
Yeah, in the summer agenda, we have a mini tour that we're going to be taking through the southeast of the country, again with the Kruger Brothers, where we're going to be playing not just at folk festivals, but also at a classical music venue with the Kruger Brothers. And then at the end, we're going to be teaching a chamber music workshop where we teach every summer in Virginia, where it's both for young students and adults, which is very important. If anybody here would like to go and have a vacation and play some chamber music down in Virginia, let us know. But then more importantly, we've got an album project coming up. We're actually working on putting together a new album, and maybe Jean has got a lovely few words to say about that, I'm sure.
I was actually going to pitch it over to Eleanor to talk about the album, but she's offering me the mic. All right. So we're doing a project that I'm just so thrilled we're doing finally, because it's been years in the making. We're releasing an album called Folklore, and Florence Price will be on it. Bongani will be on it. And Dvorak, because, I think for me it was important that we start from a place of a familiar voice, that this has already been happening. The folk music influence is already alive and well, and something we've been celebrating for centuries. And then we have a lot of other lesser known gems. And so we're recording Folklore. We actually go into the studio next week. That's when we start recording. And so look out for announcements about Kontras Quartet's Folklore album coming. Well, we're recording it over the summer, and then hopefully a 2023 release sometime.
I'm already looking forward to playing it on WFMT, so I'll be looking out for it. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. It really was an honor to talk with you. I hope you all don't mind me speaking for all of us and saying we're very excited to hear your performance today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and a very good evening to you. Once again, my name is Christina Lin. I'm a radio host over at Chicago's classical WFMT, and here today for this concert as the pre-concert discussion host. I do hope you enjoyed the discussion we had with the artists talking about their careers and the music we're about to hear tonight. It is truly an honor for me to be here with all of you as we step into summer with some wonderful music from Bongani, Ndodana-Breen, and Florence Price in today's season opening concert of the 2022 Rush Hour Concert Series. I'm sure I'm not alone in saying I'm very excited to hear the music we're about to hear today. The International Music Foundation is grateful for support from the Claire, Rush Hour Concert's exclusive media sponsor, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Illinois Arts Council. And now I'd like to welcome our talented performers to the stage. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to the Kontras Quartet.
Thank you.